it reduces our exposure many a times when we are into teaching and academics, but this is an excellent opportunity for all of us to grow. I'll do a brief introduction of our today's speaker, our colleague, Dr. Sharad Kulkarni, a wonderful and a very dynamic personality in the field of Ayurveda, and I would say a rising star. He finished his pre-university from Hubli and then joined the prestigious STM-CH in Udupi to complete his graduation in the year 2013. Being very passionate about his love for Ayurveda and his deep interest into learn further the intricacies of Ayurveda practice and Ayurveda knowledge, he pursued his post-graduation from Government Ayurveda College here in Bangalore to attain his post-graduation MS degree in Shalya Tantra in the year 2016. And he earned the accolade of being a topper for his final year post-graduation in Shalya Tantra. So Dr. Sharad still very dedicated to studying Ayurveda further, and I think he considers himself a student. Further has enrolled himself for PhD. He's a PhD scholar with RGUHS and has done wonderful work in his tenure from 2016 till now. He was invited as a speaker to talk about Indian system of medicine in central London in 2018. He has published numerous blogs and has millions of viewership for his blog content. He has published a successful, he has been a successful author and has best-selling books on Ayurveda and health, and has been a consultant for the leading Ayurveda cosmetic brand Kama Ayurveda. He is a founder, consultant at Jyottama Health and Wellness Clinic in Bangalore, which has been his most cherished dream from many years, from his student years, I would say. And now he's teaching in IIMR in the department of Shalya Tantra. He has been awarded with numerous awards like Chanakya Award in 2020 by the PRCI, and has also won prizes in essay writing competition. For example, the second prize in National Essay Writing Competition organized at Ayurved Shikshan Mandal in Pune. He's a firm believer that prevention is better than cure, which we are learning in a very hard way now due to the pandemic. I welcome you, Sharad sir, and I invite you to present your presentation, which is Parikartika, Fisher in Eno, the approach towards Parikartika in Ayurveda. Well, I welcome you, sir. You can please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chaitanya madam, for this introduction, though I don't much deserve it. And welcome everyone. Thank you for joining with us. Sorry for the delay. There was some technical error also, but I assure you that we'll finish off within the stipulated time itself. And I think we have Bhanupriya, Doctor, and Hajira, Sujata madam. Hello everyone, and Dr. Shweta, Dr. Soumya. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. And now I'll be going ahead with Fisher in Eno, that is Parikartika, which is the most discussed topic in Ayurveda and also the clinical practice. And when it comes to the introduction, anal fissure is the most common cause of severe anal pain, because most of the people visit the OPD with this kind of complaint itself, wherein they'll be having lots of pain in the anal region. And sometimes what happens is they'll not be able to bear the pain also. So they usually visit the clinic or the OPD or whatever it is. And it is equally one of the most common reasons of bleeding per anus in infants and young children also, because they will not be able to express themselves. So sometimes there will be bleeding also, and along with that there will be excruciating pain associated with it. The pain of anal ulcer is intolerable and always disproportionate to the severity of the physical lesion. If there is any physical lesion on the body, that would be giving a lesser pain, or it would be less painful than compared to the anal ulcer, because anal ulcer has more nervous supply. That's why there would be more pain, and it may be so severe that patients may avoid defecation for days together until it becomes inevitable. I had a patient, multiple patients actually. One of them, the story I would be telling here, a small kid who decided himself that defecation itself is a painful procedure, and then he just started avoiding defecation. And since he had in his mind that eating food would trigger defecation, so he stopped eating food also. And later we had to deal with him mentally and physically, so that we had to correct his whole bowel movements and also assure that he has no pain during defecation. And usually the main cause for anal fissure is constipation, the second being the loose motion. And because of the tear of the anoderm during the defecation, this will be a vicious cycle wherein we'll have lots of pain also, and then again the pain will trigger constipation, and constipation will trigger the pain because of the withholding or suppressing the urge of defecation. The lower part of the intestine is known to absorb the water from the body, and because the motion or the feces stays for a longer duration there, the water would be absorbed, reabsorbed, and absorbed and reabsorbed. That's why the feces turns very hard, and then there would be the anal tear. So we can see the anal tear here. This is a posterior anal fissure, a triangle shape. I hope everyone can see this. Maybe you can't see the cursor, but this is the anal fissure at 6 o'clock position, very evident. And this is with the sentinel pile also, which is a clinical feature of chronic anal fissure. And fissure, the term means fissura, that means a cleft sulcus or a groove. And here it means a true ulcer or a linear tear, which is longitudinal. Linear tear is longitudinal. So the synonyms include anal ulcer, anal fissure, ulcer in anochronic ulcer, or fecal ulcer also. And this is again the definition of anal fissure, wherein it is a linear ulcer in the lower half of the anal canal and extends from just below the dentate line to the margin of the anus or the anal verge. The ulcer may be acute, recurrent, or chronic, and may occur alone or along with other anorectal disorders, most commonly hemorrhoids. Because constipation is one of the base cause for both hemorrhoids and anal fissure, they may coexist sometimes. Now going to the image again, wherein we can see the anal fissure here. It's a tear, a longitudinal tear, and in this we have in the third image, left image, third, we have sentinel pile also here. Same thing can be seen in the fourth image also. And here we can see the site of dentate line and sentinel skin tag, the anal fissure, which is very evident, and the hypertrophied papilla, which is anterior to the anus or the fissure, anterior to the fissure, and the posterior to the fissure is sentinel skin tag. When it comes to epidemiology of the anal fissure, young or middle-aged adults, 30 to 50 years, especially women, suffer from the fissure because of the weight-bearing, childbearing, or urge-suppressing kind of habits. And infancy or early childhood also have the anal fissure, which results in the acquired megacolon also. And this causes sometimes the laxity of the muscles, and initially the laxity of the muscles is lost. The sphincters is, it's very tight, which we call as sphincter spasm, and eventually it gets lost, maybe because of the procedures or maybe because of the surgery, and then leading to the incontinence kind of features. And when it comes to gender, so anterior fissure is 10% incident in males and 90% posterior. Posterior is 90%. In females, it is 40% anterior and 60% posterior. Most common site is midline posteriorly, which I was talking about. If this is the anal canal, then 6 o'clock, the posterior is very common site, which we see in the clinical practice. And next frequent site is midline anterior, which is 12 o'clock position. Other sites are also not very uncommon. It suggests that they have some underlying diseases, may it be Crohn's disease, may it be tuberculosis of the intestine, may it be IBS, may it be ulcerative colitis, or may it be just the loose motion or food poisoning. So this is, next one of the underlying diseases is also syphilis and colitis. So this is how we deal with, and predominantly posterior midline location of fissures has been explained. Now, why it is common in the posterior midline? Because of the posterior angulation of the anal canal and relative fixation of the anal canal posteriorly, divergence of the muscle fibers of the external muscle fibers which cover the anus, they are diverging posteriorly itself, and elliptical shape of the anal canal, which is again one of the reason. And an anterior midline location of fissure is much more common in women, particularly in those who have born children, because it is near to the genitals, so there would be a pressure bearing effect, Sometimes post episiotomy also we have seen that females develop anal fissure, which is highly painful. So when it comes to etiology, we have primary causes, which is constipation and spasm of internal sphincter, or sometimes post-surgery, wherein there is lots of cutting. More cutting has been involved. Minimal invasive surgery holds good for anal fissure, which again doesn't hold good for fistula, because in fistula we need to cut more. In fissure we need to cut less, and even in hemorrhoids, because sometimes if the cutting is more, and if we damage the sphincter, then there would be incontinence, and if the cutting is more with respect to the mucosa, anal mucosa, there would be anal stenosis, in which anal fissure may develop when hard motion passes through such stricture. Secondary causes, which I already told, underlying diseases may involve ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, syphilis, and tuberculosis. So if we can see the frontal section of the anal canal here, very evident dentate line, and the fissure position is usually here only, somewhere here. So very evident with this image. And when it comes to pathogenesis, in the constipation during defecation, passing of hard fecal mass mainly on the posterior anorectal angle, in which the overlying epithelium is greatly stretched and torn, leading to fissure in ano. And again, the underlying cause is constipation itself. The healing of this fissure is hampered by increased internal sphincter tone. The sphincter is like tonicity of the sphincter increases and be very tight. So the wound is not at all exposed. If this is the anal canal and these are the sphincters, it's very tight. The wound is not at all exposed, so healing also delays. And fecal matter infection and poor blood supply posteriorly again is one of the thing in pathogenesis, wherein it may lead to further complications like fistula in ano also. And if left untreated, there can be development of hypertrophied anal papillae above the anal fissure, and below the anal fissure there would be a skin tag known as sentinel pile. At any stage, frank suppuration may occur and extend into the surrounding tissues to form a perianal abscess, which may discharge through the fissure into the anal canal, or may burst externally to produce low anal fistula, which is very commonly seen feature in, or very commonly seen complaint in the OPD. We see it regularly, wherein the posterior 6 o'clock fissure, if it is left untreated, there would be a fissure bed which would get infected because of regular fecal contamination, and then there would be a development of a depression there, which is the internal opening. And because the pus has to drain out, there would be external opening created automatically, or else sometimes there would be a small abscess or a boil or a pimple which gets connected internally and then forms a very low anal fistula, which is very easy to treat through Charles also. Usually the external opening of this fistula lies in or close to the midline, a short distance behind the anus, and an anal fissure should always be thought of as a commonest cause of such a median, low anal or posterior horseshoe type fistula in untreated cases, which is again a very complicated case which is seen rarely. When it comes to the classification of fissure in ano, we have primary or idiopathic. In this type, there is no pre-existing disease or any other cause except constipation. Secondary fissures, like it may be post-surgery or because of cutting, more cutting of the mucosa, then there would be a wound which is situated anteriorly or posteriorly. The second kind of classification, one was primary and secondary. The second kind of classification under the subheading, with the subheadings acute and chronic fissure in ano. Acute is one which is a very newer one and lower half of, which has developed in the lower half of anal canal. There is hardly any inflammatory induration or edema of the edges. Anal sphincter muscle spasm is always present. So this is an acute fissure wherein we can see the tremendous pain or excruciating pain along with bleeding, and there will be no sentinel pile or sentinel tag associated with it, even the hypertrophied papilla. In chronic anal fissure, which we define as the fissure which has crossed 6 weeks, the anal fissure, acute anal fissure which has crossed 6 weeks, then it may turn into chronic fissure in ano. If the acute fissure fails to heal, it will gradually develop into a deep undermined ulcer, termed now as chronic fissure. It is a deep cano-shaped ulcer, like a boat-shaped ulcer with thick edematous margins. At the upper end of the ulcer, there is hypertrophied papillae. At the lower end of the ulcer, there is a skin tag known as sentinel pile. Spasm of internal sphincter is always present. When it comes to clinical features of fissure, pain is very important. Pain per rectum or pain per annum during defecation, sharp cutting and tearing type of pain with discomfort for 2 to 3 hours post defecation is very like evident that there is a fissure in bleeding, streaks of blood, like there will be a drop or it would be stuck to the motion or the feces. Swelling, if it is there, then there could be a sentinel pile, which is again chronic anal fissure. Discharge because of the moistness, because the patient would not touch that area and keep it wet all the time because of the pain. There would be itching and fungal infection associated with it. Complications, as I told, infections and leading to fistula in sentinel pile and enlarged papillae, anal contractures, all these can be complications, and even the recurrence of the anal fissure also. When it comes to differential diagnosis, we have pruritus ani, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, squamous cell carcinoma or adenocarcinoma of rectum, because ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, IBS, all these have bleeding per rectum. Pruritus ani has itching, and syphilitic fissures again have underlying cause. Tubercular ulcer, idiopathic stenosis of internal sphincter, elderly women addict to purgatives, overuse of purgatives or laxative abuse has also been associated with anal fissure. When it comes to anal fissure in Ayurveda, it's not a separate disease mentioned. Charaka mentions it under the clinical features of Grahani and complication of Virechana and Basti. I think Panchakarma people can correlate it very nicely. And Sushruta again has told it in Samshodhana Vyapad and termed it as Parikartika. So Mrudu Kosta Alpa Doshasya Ruksha Tikshna Atimatra Basti Dosha. If at all person is having Mrudu Kosta and Alpa Dosha, and then if we give a very Tikshna Basti, then there are all the possibilities that the Alpa Dosha along with the Basti Dravya, when it is going out, then it may trigger the anal fissure or the Parikartika. So here he has mentioned the clinical features also very nicely, wherein Toda in Trika, Vamshna in Basti, Ruja in Nabhi Adobhaga, Vibhanda, Alpa Alpa Malapravriti, which clearly correlates with the anal fissure of modern medical science also. Mamta madam, I think the time is up. Time is finished. So should we join again, Chetali madam?
Yes, sir.
Join to the other link.
Yeah. If the link goes, please all the participants join the second link which has been given.
Perfect. I think it will be done now almost. Okay. And if there is administration of again Tikshna Aushadhi to the Guru Koshti, wherein there is Amadosha, then also, and if the patient is Durbala, then there are all the possibilities that there can be a Parikartika kind of thing also. And so when it comes to the Samprapti, Nidana Sevana and Ama Sahita Dosha Nirharana, Lakshana, as I already mentioned, Tivra Shula in Buddha Pradesha and Raktasrava, which is mentioned by Acharya Sushruta in Chikitsasana 34th chapter, 16th shloka. And administration of Ati Tikshna, Ati Ushna, Ati Lavana and Ati Ruksha Aushada in Shina Bala, Mrudu Kosta, Mandagni and Ruksha Prakriti person. Vata and Pitta Prakopa, usually the dosha involved is Vata and Pitta, and then it leads to Parikartika. Lakshana is again Buddha Nabhi, Medra, Basti Shira, Kartanavat Vedana, very important thing to notice here. Cutting type of pain, Kartanavat Vedana. Vayu Avarodha, we can call it as obstipation or constipation or absolute constipation. Vatadmana and Aruchi, which I already mentioned. Aruchi we can also consider here, like what I consider it is because of the pain of defecation. Patient usually stop eating the food also. Of course, it may not. All right. So we are just seeing the Lakshana of the Parikartika, wherein Guda, Nabhi, Medra, Basti, Shira, Kartanavat Vedana, where it would be a cutting type of pain, very much correlated to the anal fissure. Vayu Avarodha, wherein it can be absolute constipation or complete constipation called as obstipation or even constipation also. And Vatadmana and Aruchi. Aruchi I was just correlating with the small case there. And when it comes to the Chikitsa, one important thing mentioned by Sushruta here, the Lakshana, Chinnativa Vedana in Nabhi, Basti and Budasthana, again cutting type of pain, very much evident in today's OPD practice. So when it comes to the chikitsa, so Sahamadosha, Langana, Pachana, Ruksha, Ushna, Aushada, and Ahara, as mentioned by Acharya Charaka in Siddhisthana 6th chapter, 63rd shloka to 67th shloka. And if the patient is Kirsha, then Madhura Rasa Yukta Dravya and Brahmana Chikitsa. And if it is Vata Pradhana, then Dadima Swarasa Yukta Grita plus Kasisa Basma and Saindava plus Yavakshara internally, Dadima Thok Churna Yukta Amla Dadi. So as of now, what we are practicing is Kashaya and Madhura Dravya Siddha Picha Basti, which we call as even the normal Basti itself, and Yashti Madhu Kalka Siddha Taila Anuvasana Basti and Dugdha Ahara, which we practice extensively these days. Yashti Madhu Kalka Siddha Taila Matra Basti, or this Taila Purna, what we call as, has given excellent results, and the patients who have visited the OPD with excruciating pain, wherein they are not even able to walk for a while or sit for a while, have just walked out of clinic just after maybe fraction of minutes, maybe not more than 30 to 40 seconds. So that much great effect we have when it is with the Yashti Madhu Kalka Siddha Taila Basti, or even the Jatyadi oil also. And as per Sushruta Chikitsa 34:16, Yashti Madhu, Krishna Tila Kalka, Madhu and Grita, Shitala Jalasnana and Kshira Bhojana, which is again same in both, and Grita Manda or Yashti Madhu Kalka Siddha Taila Anuvasana Basti, Picha Basti, or Madhura Dravya Siddha Sneha Basti, as mentioned by Sushruta Acharya. And Kashyapa mentions about the types of Parikartika, Vataja Parikartika, Brihati Bilva and Ananta Mula Yusha. And Pittaja, it can be Yashti Madhu, Hamsapari, Dhanyaka, and Madhu utilization of the herbs and or the Dravya. And the Kafaja Parikartika, Kantakari, Ashwata Kalga plus Saindava for Bhojana or Pana. When it comes to the Kafaja Parikartika in Kilasthana 10th chapter, 102 shloka. So when it comes to the management of anal fissure as per the contemporary science, we have conservative treatment wherein avoidance of constipation is the prime aim or prime agenda of the treatment. Anesthetic ointment, anal dilator usage, maybe weekly basis or daily basis, and long-acting local anesthetics, analgesics or muscle relaxants, application of glyceryl trinitrate to the local area, botulinum neurotoxin usage or hyperbaric oxygen. All these treatments we have been using when it comes to the contemporary science, and the criteria has been mentioned very wonderfully here. Short and single history of pain, then like long and continuous or intermittent history of pain, wherein the surgery and the conservative treatment we can always differentiate here. So if there is sentinel pile, we always opt for the surgical treatment, which is again a minimally invasive surgery through either laser or even the diathermy or electrocautery. No sentinel pile or sentinel pile, we can go ahead with conservative treatment as mentioned earlier. And if there is no induration, we can go ahead with conservative. Indurations in the edges of the fissure, then we can go ahead with the surgical treatment. The scar is superficial, then conservative treatment. Scar is deep, then we can have the surgical management. And fibers of internal sphincters, if they are not exposed, then we can go ahead with conservative management. If they are exposed, then we can go ahead with the surgical management. Mild to moderate pain, conservative. Severe pain, acute or in the acute or chronic cases of anal fissure, we can go ahead with surgical management. And aims and objectives of treatments, we should be very clear, because a patient would be very much worried about the pain during defecation and the discomfort after the defecation. So complete relaxation of internal sphincter has to be attained in order to free the patient from the pain. Oral pain medication before any anticipated bowel movement, and stool softener, weak bulk laxative, soothing ointments with anesthetizing properties may be applied. Injection of long-acting anesthetic agents, which is again a temporary treatment, not at all the permanent one. The application of glyceryl trinitrate is also a very temporary one. Anal dilation or dilatation is one of the wonderful procedure practiced by all the so-called senior surgeons, because anal dilation itself forms around 60 to 70% of the treatment when it comes to the anal fissure or any kinds of anal diseases, may it be the hemorrhoids or may it be the anal fissure, because the sphincter laxation itself gives the patient a lots of comfort, wherein that itself has been causing the pain. Intracanal packing is given to avoid soiling during the operation, and digital anal dilatation, stretching of the anal sphincters, a procedure similar to that described by Rickemer in 1829, is done instead of Lord's procedure technique. In the patient in the lithotomy position, usually we do it under short general anesthesia or the general anesthesia, with or local anesthesia with sedatives, which is exclusively done by Ayurvedic surgeons, not by allopathy surgeons. The anus is forcibly stretched by introducing first both index fingers and then index and middle fingers, which we'll be seeing in the upcoming image, the how to dilate the anal canal, and middle fingers of both hands, which maintain a firm distraction for 3 to 4 minutes. During this maneuver, the forearms are fully pronated so as to stretch particularly the posterior wall of the anal canal. We have to pronate and then we have to stretch it. And this is how we do the anal dilatation. You can just see the index fingers of both the hands, and then two fingers together here. And anal sphincter stretching, again, a very unique technique in order to maintain, manage the anal fissure. But care has to be taken if at all there is any overstretching, or if we are going ahead with more stretching, then there can be all the possibilities that there can be flatus or feces incontinence. Flatus incontinence is wherein a person or the patient will not be able to withhold the flatus, or feces incontinence is wherein there is more damage to the sphincters and then the patient will not be able to hold the feces. Dorsal internal sphincterotomy, which is extensively practiced, incision over the fissure and revelation of the anterior fibers of the internal sphincter, which you can see here, light pink color. And then we can just dissect this with the diathermy or even the scalpel, both are fine. And lateral sphincterotomy is extensively practiced these days because of its less complications, because this posterior sphincterotomy may sometimes cause buttonhole defect, wherein there would be a permanent damage or defect or a depression in the posterior part, that is at 6 o'clock position, which will usually give rise to flatus incontinence. The patient will not be able to hold the flatus, and that's why we practice lateral sphincterotomy, wherein there would be an incision and then we will reveal the internal sphincter fibers, and then those would be excised with the diathermy. So one more like excision of anal fissure by Gabriel's method we have, wherein we expose fissurectomy procedure, wherein this is the fissure in the A image, in the B it has been excised completely, and that's how we go ahead with Gabriel's procedure. And the holding of the sentinel pile is very important and practically determined, or practically very important, because of its presence. It will be covering the whole fissure. There will be fissure here and it will be covering the whole fissure. So it has to be held with the Alice forceps very methodically after stretching the dilatation of the anal sphincters and dorsal internal sphincterotomy. The sentinel pile is boldly held with the help of Alice tissue holding forceps, and then you can just give a semicircular groove with either diathermy or the scalpel. You can see here the holding of the anal fissure sentinel pile. Of course, here it has been held with the thumb forceps, which is done in the later expertise. But usually, as a beginner, we should always hold it with the Alice forceps. Just clamp it and then just incise at the base of it, maybe leaving around 2 to 3 mm. We shouldn't cut it almost till the anus, or else there could be a possibility of stricture, which we were discussing earlier. And blunt scissor, we can just use the semicircular groove, do the semicircular groove, or we can use the diathermy, and then we can excise the tag. Excision of the sentinel pile is done at the demarcation made by semicircular groove after achieving the secured ligation. Some of the surgeons prefer ligating it so that there will be no bleeding at all. We call it as bloodless surgeries also. Here we can just ligate it and also we can excise it. And after this, we can always keep a gauze which is soaked in Jatyari Tela, or betadine is also fine. inside the canal. One end of the anal packing given initially is withdrawn out for facilitating easy removal. So this is how we can pack it usually. This is the flatus tube which is inserted, or else the patient will have lots of discomfort and pain if at all we block it completely, which is what we have seen in the clinical practice. This is how we can just bandage it, and later post-operatively we can always opt for either Triphala Gugulu Gandhaka Rasayana or any broad spectrum antibiotics with the analgesics for 24 hours, and orally we can allow them after an hour of operation, but usually what we prefer is we do it after maybe 1 day so that it will be easy for the wound healing, and regular monitoring for the hemorrhage has to be done in the ward itself without disturbing the anal dressing. And post-operative care and prescription, dressing is removed next morning, that is after 24 hours usually, and then Avagaha Sweda, that is a sitz bath is given, and sitz bath can be given every 12 hours so that there is relief in the pain, and installation of Jatedi Taila into the anal canal with the help of 8-number rubber catheter attached with a 10 ml syringe or even 50 ml syringe or even 100 ml syringe. It's absolutely fine. So that we'll also take care of healing, we'll take care of strengthening the sphincters, we'll take care of the pain. Jatedi Taila can also be mixed with ST Madhu Taila, and then we can always use it as a Matra Basti. Of course, here the position differs. We do it in lithotomy position, whereas Matra Basti should be done in left lateral position. And Triphala Gugulu and Triphala powder so as to take care of the bowel movements, Triphala Gugulu to take care of the pain. And when it comes to the Samshodhana treatment, then Narayana Taila or Panchaguna Taila Snehana and Svedana with warm water. Virechana here can be Mrudu kind of Virechana, and then we have also seen the Vasti treatment, that is Vasti treatment. Langana Pachana forms the Samshamana line of treatment. You can see the administration of the ghee here. So wherein this is the exposed wound, and it heals wonderfully if we practice this ghee, even application or as a pichu or even the purana, all three can be done. So this is one of the patent ghee. Going ahead with the conclusion before moving towards the end of this seminar or webinar, conservative treatments with Ayurvedic methods, Samshodhan, Samshaman are all effective measures or methods, techniques that may reduce the need for anesthesia and surgery in many of the patients, which we were discussing earlier, who are an absolute indication for surgery. These could always be offered to the patients who are not willing for operative procedures. Usually the patient visits Ayurvedic OPD with an intention to avoid surgery itself. So these can be good alternatives or substitutes for that. And surgical manipulation should be sought in case of recurrence or failure of conservative treatment. While all the available options are explained to the patient with complete information about the method, cure rates, complications, and reversibility of the disease, the surgeon should analyze the optimum treatment for the particular patient in order to make a good and safe choice, and then offer to the patient the result of best of the judgment of his own. Lots of difference of opinions exist with respect to anal fissure, because some get good results with just the Taila Purana, some get very good results with just the medicines, and some always opt for surgery. So we cannot just comment on each of them. Everyone has their own story, everyone has their own patient's story, so we have to respect everything. And having said this, I'll be ending this webinar. Thank you all for participating. Thank you IIAMRs, thank you Shailaja Madam, thank you Mamta Madam, thank you Chetali Madam, and thank you everyone who have been participating here. I hope you have gained at least a little bit of insight on the anal fissure, that is perikartika, and you would be at least able to treat the patients in the OPD. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone who participated. I would like to say that there will always be starting problems whenever we start any any program like this. I would like to thank Dr. Sharath for taking the initiative and being the first presenter in this webinar series. It was a wonderful presentation, and I would like all the participants and for your grit to stick by, those who stuck by till the end of the presentation. And there are several hitches that we have to learn as we go. I would say this is a whole new learning experience for all of us who are presenting and who are attending these webinars. And there's a lot for us to learn. We will definitely keep trying. Due to the lack of time, I would request Shailaja Madam to take a note that, to move my presentation to next Tuesday, so that we can have participants figure out, how to join and make this little more kind of, more organized effort. Because it's a new thing for us, it's definitely going to take time for us to figure out and kind of streamline the organization and the smooth conduction of all these webinars. So we will again have opinions from all of you as to some were not able to hear the audio and some were not able to. So it will be better that somebody else who's not a presenter makes the presenter host and also allows people who are joining the meeting room inside, because the presenter will not be able to do both the things simultaneously.
Correct.
Also, if the presenter wants to record the presentation and everything, having a host control would be really crucial for that, so that they can present and keep it for their own record. And the presentations on this platform will have credits for you if you want to present this. As for the other participants who are there, I would like to say that this is a wonderful platform for you to learn and hone your skills of presentation and learn. So we'll try to give further more, and I would invite, suggestions from Dr. Sharad, who presented today, as to what was his experience and if there are any inputs to better this experience for everybody. And also from the staff, if they have any, suggestions regarding this. I don't think Shailaja Madam was able to join us and give her inputs, and I would definitely ask her inputs. People who are part of the organization committee or whoever is interested in carrying this initiative forward, please, get in touch with like-minded people and carry this forward. And once again, Dr. Sharad, thank you so much for sparing us your time today and for the wonderful presentation. And I would like to thank you on the behalf of the staff of IIMR for engaging this wonderful 1 hour for us. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining. Thank you.